Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about a personalized program that I'm working on that will allow me to copy the latest video file on my camcorder. And we can get the latest video file just from the file index. All the videos are labeled with numbers, and it's just going to be for my camera. But I think you can learn something off this. I went ahead and wrote some pseudo for it just because I can. First, I wrote down the objective at the top. Get the last video taken from my camcorder and copied into my video directory, and that would be my objective. And then I have some notes down here which are just information about some problems that we may possibly come across. So the drive letter may change, but the volume label will stay the same, and the volume label of my camera's drive is CAM-MEM. And the files are labeled with a 5-digit number and can be easily parsed to int without the path and the extension. And there's an example of the file name. We also may need to trim the leftmost zeros for parsing. We really don't. I just put that there. And then the drives need to be ready before accessing their info. Otherwise, we're going to get some errors. So here's my main method. I'm first defining my main method. And where I'm using the get keyword, or just a word, the get keyword implies that I'm referencing a method, I'm getting something from a method, and I don't really need to declare a variable. There's no variable that's going to be elaborately referenced in the pseudo, and I could just do something very general like this. If I'm going to do something that requires a variable name, I'll do something like set. I'll use the set keyword. I'll say set string and then the identifier, and here I'm saying set string last video path and get video file path with highest video index. And the and keyword just implies that I'm calling a method afterwards on the right hand side and assigning it to the variable. After that, I'm just going to copy the latest video file path to my videos directory. Then I'm going to end the method, and I'm not going to use capitals for my keywords ever. I like not using capitals. It's more readable. It's pseudocode. It's supposed to be readable. And after my main method, I have all of the calls that are required that are called in the main method. So down below it, I've got the get camera drive method that's going to iterate through all of the available drives, and if the drive is ready and drive label is equal to CAN-MEM, then return the drive. Otherwise, at the end of the loop, we're just going to return null. Okay, and with my method names in pseudocode, if it says something like get camera drive, I'm not going to explicitly say that it returns drive info or drive, just because the name implies what it returns and there's no need for that. But often or not, I will explicitly pretty much all the time, I write down what the method accepts. So down here in this second method, I have in the signature here, get video file paths accepts drive info. So this method is going to accept a drive or a drive info. You can just put drive in there if you want to. Then I'm going to set string video folder as drive root plus video folder path. And you can use operators in pseudo. It's not really a big deal. And then after that, I'm saying if video exists, then return it. Otherwise, return null. And in my the conventions that I'm using right now, I just decided to do it this way. The methods themselves don't have error messages for the console because we're going to be using a console program. So in the methods, we are going to be returning null or string or empty strings or empty characters or whatever. And then in the main method, we are going to assess the return values and display information to the user in the main method instead of having that stuff in the methods themselves. I just decided to do it this way. I like it a lot, just so you can keep your main method pretty linear or looking linear. Anyways, so here's the last method. It's going to accept file paths. That's obviously a string array. Don't need to explicitly say that it's a string array. And it's obviously going to get a path. So it says get latest video file, and whenever you say file, you're pretty much implicitly referring to a file path. Okay, so let's translate this sudo into actual code. And I can't really dock this window here because I have a second monitor to the left. Okay, and we're going to call this last video file copier. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define our methods below, because we can't define our main body just because it has method calls in it that are a lot that we need. So we're going to define our methods first. So method get camera drive. Okay, and this is going to return drive info, of course. So it's going to be private and static, and it's going to return a drive info object, which will be our drive pretty much. And it won't accept anything. So we're going to iterate through the drives for each drive info in drive info dot get drives. That's going to get all of the available drives. And in the sudo it says if drive is ready and drive label is camera, then return drive. And then at the end of the for loop we'll just return null if nothing else is returned. So if info dot is ready, and if you don't check to see if the drive is ready, you won't be able to read the other properties without getting an error. So if info is ready, might as well just rename this to drive, be a bit more descriptive. And drive dot label, volume label, to lower is equal to cam mem. That's going to be my camera drive. And if it is my camera drive, then we're going to return it. Otherwise return null. Okay, on to the second method. The second method is get video file paths, and that's going to accept drive info. That actually should be get video file directory, and it should return a string. Yes, that's exactly what it is. So get video file directory. That's going to be the directory in my camcorder hard drive, or not hard drive, but volume that contains the video files. It's going to accept our camera drive info. Okay, so the first thing that I see is set string video folder as drive root plus video folder path. So we're going to do that. String video folder is equal to camera drive dot root directory. That's just going to give me the volume label, like it's a letter assignment, and I do believe it's going to have the brackets in it. I'm not so sure. I don't think it actually has the brackets, so I'm going to put the backslashes in there. Maybe it just has that colon in the letter. And we're going to add the video folder path. I'm going to plug in my camera, and we're going to try to find this video folder path. By the way, I decided to make this program just because I don't like to open up a very large video file camera interfacing program to copy a single file to my computer. Anyways, let's open up the files here. Let's take a look around. So it's going to be in the stream directory, and there are my 3 files. I'm just going to copy this path part of it. I'm going to put the @ symbol in front of the string literal so that the backslashes are interpreted as escape sequences, and they will be interpreted as literal backslashes. Okay, so there's our video file directory. Now we need to actually check to see if it exists. So if video folder exists, then return it, otherwise return null. And I think I'm just going to return an empty string just because we don't need the null string. I just prefer to return empty strings. You can return an empty string or a null string. It doesn't really matter in this case. So I'm going to use the directory class static method exists to check to see if the directory exists. So if video folder directory exists, then return video folder, else return null. And you may want to add some commentation here. Again, it doesn't really matter if you return null or string empty when nothing's found. Just make sure that you comment. Okay, so the next method is get latest video file, and this accepts file paths as a string array. And we're not going to make a method to actually get all the files in our video file directory, simply because it's a simple line of code in C#, and we can do that in the main method, no problem. And it will return a string as a path and accepts file paths. Okay, so we're going to declare an integer set number, so I'm going to call it highest index is equal to -1. And we're going to declare a string latest video file path and make it string empty. And we're going to do this because we will be parsing the file name to an integer as the file name without the extension, and the directory is just numbers. And the higher the number, the later the version, or sorry, the later the video was taken. And basically the file name itself is just an index. So we are going to parse the file name to an index, and if the index is higher than -1, then we're just going to assign to high index and set the latest video file path. And we want to set the highest index to -1 simply because there could be only one file in the video file directory, and it could be just zeros, just 5 zeros. And if it's not greater than the highest index and it was 0, it simply would not be listed as the latest video file path. Okay, so next we want to iterate through all of the strings in the file paths array. For each string path in file paths, and we need to declare an integer, so int index is equal to 0, and then we will use try parse, and try parse. We're going to use the path static method called get file name without extension to get the numeric value of the file, just because it's all numbers. And we're going to pass in our iterated path. And in sudo, I use the word current to refer to the iterated object. So current path would indicate that the current path is just a string that is being iterated through. And we're going to pass in our index. And we need to check for success. If we don't check for success, we're going to have more problems with the single file being in the directory. Simply because try parse will yield 0 for the index if it doesn't, if it can't parse the string. And index is greater than highest index, so a later file in relation to the last latest file found. And then we want to set the highest index to index and set the latest video file path to the current iterated path. Then we're just going to return the latest video file path, and by default it's going to be an empty string, so if no file paths are processed, then it's going to return an empty string. So you might want to specify that in the XML documentation. And that's it for the methods, other than the main method. So let's go up to the main method and start typing it in. So the first method being called is get camera drive from available drive. So let's do that. We're going to declare drive info, call it camera drive, and call our get camera drive method. After that, we've got get video file from camera drive, or video file directory. So string video dir is equal to get video file directory, and we're going to pass in our camera drive. And after that, we have get video file paths. So let's do that right now. Call it paths is equal to directory get files, and we're going to pass in our video dir. And after that, we have set string latest video file path and get video file path with highest video index. Okay, so that is another method call. Just so string latest video file path is equal to get latest video file path, and we're going to pass in our paths that we created earlier. And after that, we are going to copy the latest video file path to the My Videos directory. So we want to get the directory, the destination directory, being our My Videos folder. So that's going to be, we can do this with the environment get folder path method using the My Videos enumeration. And we need to specify the file name itself, not just the directory. So we are going to do destination is plus equal to path dot get file name. It's going to get the file name with the extension and append it to the destination directory. So we're going to pass in our latest video file path. We also need to add our backslashes in there, I do believe. Okay, now that we have that set up, we can use file.copy. We're going to pass in our source file name, so latest video file path, and send it to our destination. Now we need to do some error checking and whatnot. So let's do that right now. Okay, so I spelled a method wrong, so I'm just going to fix that. Get camera drive. Okay, so the get camera drive can return null, so we need to test that. So if camera drive, you know what, first I got to write a method right quick. I'm going to call it exit message, and this method will return a message, or it'll yield a message to the user using console write line, and then after they input some text or press a key, then it will terminate. So I'm going to accept a message, console write line, and then console read line. And after that, we are going to use environment exit and pass in 0 to tell the operating system that the application has exited without any problems. Okay, let's get back to error checking up here. So if camera drive is equal to null, I should probably rename this method to show exit message. And basically, once we call this show exit message, we don't need to return in the main method. Typically, if you want to exit your console application, you would return, and that's about it. But I don't know, I just prefer to write this method here, the show exit message method. I like it. So we are going to show an error message, and I usually don't use exclamation marks with my messages, but that's just how you indicate errors often in console applications, so that's what I'm going to do. So the message will be could not get camera, or could not find camera drive. I gotta make these I gotta make this show exit message method static, of course. And this method here can return null if no video file directory is found. So we're going to test that. Video dir is equal to null. Then show exit message again. Could not find video file directory folder. I'm not sure if this will return an empty string if nothing's found, or maybe a or null. I'm gonna look that up right now to see what it does and how I want to test it. Yeah, it says if there are no files, this method returns an empty array. And that's good because all I need to do for the testing here is I need to check to see if paths length is equal to 0. Then we can just show our exit message again. Say no video files present or found. And let's go to the method to see what this returns. I'm returning an empty string. I think I'm just going to change this to null. Just to keep things similar. So if latest video file path is equal to null, then show our exit message again. Now if we got to this point, we know that files were found because we got past this here, and so we obviously had some problems parsing the existing files. So we'll just say could not parse or could not recognize present files as videos. That will do. So all three of these methods here used can return or yield an exception, so we're going to wrap them in the try catch block. And show the exit message with the exception message. Okay, so I'm going to run the program. I don't have my camera connected right now, and it's going to tell me could not find camera. When I press enter, the program's just going to close. I'm going to plug in my camera, and we're going to change this path down here, corrupt it, and it says could not find video file folder, so that's good. Just fix it, run it again, and I think it just copied a video. And on my camera, the latest video is going to be this third video here at index 2. So the try parse for the integer worked just fine. And what else can we test out? No video files found, so I'm going to delete all the video files on my camera to see if that works. Great, very good. So I'm working on my own kind of practices for pseudocode, and I think I'm going to go with just capitalizing the first letter of every keyword or important word, and I haven't really done it in this video here. And I didn't really do then. You typically want to put then after your if signatures, and then or do whatever. I am at the moment going to be keeping my statements in the if blocks in line with the signature and in line with the otherwise statements like the else and the else if. Just because if you decide to indent your statements like this in your if blocks, then embedded if statements will start panning outside of your pseudocode text editor, and it actually gets pretty long if you have a lot of embedded ifs. You may have noticed that I'm spacing my return null from the bottom of my for each loop, and it's very simple logic. You could just base this on instinct, really. These two things are inline, but they're not related. This is a statement, and this is an end of a while loop, or sorry, a looping construct. And you just really don't want them to be close together like that. But statements next to statements are okay. And at the top here, they're squished together, so the method signature and the for each signature are line after line, like they're right next to each other. And I did this because the for each is indented, and it's pretty clear that it differs from the signature. It's a completely different thing. If you're writing pseudocode and you're a freelancer and you're not really working with a team, your pseudocode should be articulated for your likings, so whatever you want it to be, whatever you can read easiest and translate to your language. But that doesn't mean that you can write your pseudocode specific to your language, because that would just kind of defy the point. You'd just be writing C# on a piece of paper, and be kind of weird. But yeah, try different things with pseudocode, just different formats and different ways of presenting the code. To be honest, writing pseudocode for smaller applications is somewhat counterproductive. Well, counterproductive. When I was taking a Java course in high school, we were writing like a course. We were writing flowcharts and stuff for every single app. But the teacher one day implied that even the best programmers do this, and that was completely incorrect. The best programmers are not going to write pseudocode and flowcharts for small applications. That's just plain silly. They can just run through some things so quickly. There's no point in writing pseudocode. And everything like that, I was pretty much arguing with my teacher, like I'm too obsessive. One day my teacher referred to a constant as a variable, and they're two very different things. You can't say that a constant varies or a variable is constant. It's just wrong. And it's basically just arguing about these things with my teacher every day and debating stuff, because that's what I do. It's just the way I am. And pretty much almost failed the course because I never really did any work, and that's just the way I am as well. If you have been programming for more than a year and you go into a programming course in junior high or high school, you're not going to learn anything at all. It's just the very basics, and it's just really a complete waste of time. I would recommend going and taking some advanced mathematics course, something more refined. Like the teacher that I had in high school was just some random business guy who knew a lot about business but not a lot about computer programming. Basically just started talking about business randomly when we were talking about programming in class. It's quite tiresome. That's all I have to say for now. Make sure that you comment, rate, and subscribe to my videos.